Good morning, or should I say just good afternoon to people joining us. Welcome. Where I'm sitting at the moment, I'm sitting in a rather wet Taunton. So if you want to let us know where you're sitting around the countryside, that would be great. So in a few minutes, we'll get going. What we're going to do is, as we normally do, we're going to put a poll up, a survey for today. It's got 5 questions in it. We're going to run through those questions in a minute. But if we put it up in a minute, Abraham, those who've joined early can. Please do participate in the poll. It does help both Daniel and Paul to get a feeling of what the knowledge is in the room. So today's survey, you can go either 2 ways to enter it, either by using the OCR camera, or you can go straight to slido.com and enter the code, which is #LM, and it's today's date. So please feel free to start doing the poll. Don't see anyone saying where they are in the chat box yet, so please feel free to put in where you are. But you'll probably, that's beginning to come through, yeah. So do you want to show the first question for those people who want to see it up on a screen, please, Abraham? So I'm looking at it. For those of you who want to know, how familiar are you with the term climate technology in the context of the built environment? So you have a choice of very familiar, somewhat familiar, heard of it but not sure what it means, not familiar at all. So please start to fill it in. No one's yet completed it, otherwise it would show at the top right hand side. Question 2. Which area do you think has the greatest potential for climate innovation in the built environment? Sustainable materials, smart energy systems, digital twins and data analytics, circular construction practices, policy and regulation. So you have 5 choices there. Question 3. Abraham, are you able to put these questions up? I can't see them coming up. What is your organisation's current approach to climate tech adoption? Actively implementing solutions, exploring, early stage awareness, no current plans, not applicable. I see people sharing different weather. Seems that it's quite sunny in Glasgow, but it's raining in Birmingham. I can tell you it's certainly raining in the south. So next question, what is the biggest barrier to adopting climate technology in your experience? Cost and funding, lack of knowledge and skills, regulatory uncertainty, resistance to change, and technology maturity. And the last question, how confident are you that the built environment can meet the net zero targets by 2050? Well, I'm showing that 7 people have now completed the survey. Abraham, are you there? Maybe have a slight technical glitch here. Because what I'd like to do is to get the survey up on the screen.
The benefit you've got, Howard, is that you can blame it on the weather.
Well, maybe, maybe. That's not satisfactory though. I probably can go through the results, but you can't see them, I don't think. Slido's reloading is a bit of a problem here for me as well. 12 people have now kindly completed it. Looks like we've got a connection not responding, is that correct? Right. Abraham, are you able to put up the results?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. We have a problem. The screen you've got up isn't showing. I've got 12 people is showing completed the survey. Are we able to put those up on the screen now?
There seems to be some issue. Are you logged into Slido for
Yeah, I am.
any
Yeah.
chance?
Yes, I am.
Oh, can you maybe close it? I
Close
think
it.
it
Well,
doesn't
no, I'm
work
not.
with two
Only on my
people.
phone. I'm not closed on. I'm not. I'm not on the. I'm only on my phone as a respondent filling the survey in.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why. Let me try refreshing it.
Yeah. I think we have some weather issues in the UK, probably, Abraham.
Yeah, seems to be some issue with Slido. Sorry.
I might suggest we just jump straight into the presentation then, Howard, to be honest, then we can pick this up at the end if need be.
Great thought. I was thinking the same.
Awesome.
So are we able to take this screen down, Abraham, so that we go straight into presentation? We'll come back to the poll afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, I've taken it down.
It's not coming down, though. That's the trouble.
I'll try and take
Maybe
over.
Daniel, you could just try and share your screen. It would automatically switch.
That's what we're doing. Hopefully.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll get going as soon as we can. Technology sometimes, weather-wise, it's not great.
Let's do it the old way, shall we? Right. Are we up and running?
Yes, you might just want to blow your screen out. We're
Yep,
up away.
Will do.
Thanks very much, Danielle. Well done.
No problem. Okay, thanks everyone that filled in the Slido so far. We'll try and get back to that at the end of the session. Paul and I will do some introductions in a moment. I think, you know, we're all in the same boat in the built environment around climate technology and innovation in our buildings, in our cities, in our towns. It's something key that we need to start looking at and building towards and utilising with our clients, with our contractors in collaboration. So we'll start moving through the slide deck, and if there's any questions, please put them in the chat, or if you want to wait until the end to ask them there, we'll have some time. So don't be shy. You can do it anonymously if need be. And Paul and I can be contacted outside of the webinar as well if you've got any other questions you might like to discuss with us. We'll be exploring different technologies and how we're trying to reshape the built environment, from infrastructure to materials to digital twins, a circular economy, specifically around smart energy systems and the AI influence, predictive maintenance, how we can make our buildings better for those that are in them. We'll start looking at emerging trends, how we can use innovation and the role of data to achieve our goals moving forward. Paul, I'm going to let you go first with introductions so we can swap it around a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Nice to see some of you and meet all of you online. So Paul McCorkadale, I'm CEO of a company called GridEdge. We partner with Amey on a solution that is a digitization of the built estate, which we'll go into a little bit more detail. My background has been data for very many years. I'd like to say it was a few years, but I'm getting a bit older these days. So yeah, it's definitely 20 odd to 30 years now in data in different industries, from telco into e-commerce, and the last 10 years have been in energy and basically real estate environment of the built environment. So a lot of experience around how you use data. But hopefully what you'll see from some of this conversation today is technology is only one part of it, and actually you've got to get technology solving the problem. What you don't want is what I call chocolate teapot technology sets. They end up just gathering dust in the corner because they don't actually deliver value. So it's all about delivering that value and delivering results.
Fab, thanks, Paul. Afternoon, everyone. My name's Danielle Hayward Nightingale. I'm currently serving as the Head of Strategic Asset Management for Amey. So we're a global engineering company, for those that haven't heard of us. My role will be moving into the Head of Innovation Strategy, hence my role here, I guess. I have been in the built environment across many different roles, from public sector procurement frameworks through to FTSE 100 contractors. Some of you may have, may or may not want to fondly remember Carillion. I started with them at the age of 16. I've worked in consultancy, and now I'm back at the forefront of the industry, working in facilities management, complex facilities, buildings, operations, a bit of everything. So my role really is to start looking at data-driven decision making, the strategy behind it, and how we can start using innovation to really benefit our sector. Let's move on. There we go. So I think everyone in the room probably knows the landscape that we're navigating right now. So we've got aging infrastructure and rising maintenance costs. That comes from our, our train networks. It goes to the roads, it goes to the buildings that we eat, sleep, work, play, learn in. With the aging infrastructure and the aging buildings, maintenance costs keep rising. We have to start making, key decisions around, do we repair by replace? And if we replace, what do we replace with? Is there a better way of doing things? We need to also think about our net zero targets. There's a lot of different decisions that have to come together to enable us to keep buildings running and in the most sustainable way. Data is a massive one. So, we've got fragmented data across our own teams, across businesses, across client to contractor to, operator. We need to really start thinking and moving towards common data environments, which I'll touch on a little bit later on, information management initiatives, to just streamline that process so we can all work in partnership a lot better. We're seeing increased demand for sustainability, and with that, we've got our targets that I keep mentioning, but also our clients and the people. And if you're running a hospital, people are starting to expect to see a sustainable way of working. If you're running a school, what's the biodiversity quota? What do these things look like? And along with sustainability, you see different learning outcomes. So we're going to be piloting a AI little tiny box in some of the schools in Yorkshire, which has shown in previous studies to actually help children, especially those that have been struggling either with behaviour or from different socioeconomic backgrounds, to have a piece in the world that they're in. So we're starting to look at different things like that, and also compliance. So those who operate and maintain buildings, compliance is everything. We need to be safe. At Amey, we have a zero code. Everything is completely safe. We do not do anything that is not. And we've got the pressure to deliver more with less. That comes from, if you're a public sector body, your budgets, they're stretched, they're tight, you've got backlog maintenance, but you still are expected to deliver more. On, the tier 1 contractor side, we're expected to deliver more for less money in the background. And I'm sure Paul can tell you as well from his perspective around, there's like a Rolls-Royce standard, but the budgets are really low. So we need to work collaboratively together to find the best solution for everybody. Think a little bit of background. I'm not sure how much you all know because we'll get the slide up at the end, but in terms of driving sustainable transformation and why it actually matters in our sectors is, the built environment contributes nearly 40% to global carbon emissions. That's a huge number. So that's not even the cars, the supercars, Formula One. This is actually the buildings that we live, eat and breathe in. Innovation in climate technology has to be at the forefront of what we're doing to meet these targets. We've tried different ways of working. It's not quite got us where we need to be. So we're starting to see our goal, our dates tracking backwards slightly, and certain, places aren't quite meeting them yet, but we can definitely work together to start addressing that. Some key innovations in practice. So these are things that Paul and I have done together, that Amey do, that other companies do as well. So smart building systems, so Internet of Things. Love that title, but IoT-enabled sensors on assets, walls, buildings, roads, bridges, to start getting the key data that we need to make these decisions and make the right decisions for the future. Artificial intelligence, it's been a buzzword for a while now, but using it properly and using it to do the right thing is key to what we're trying to do here, and utilising it to do predictive analytics. So we can start forecasting maintenance. We can start seeing, okay, well, this asset isn't quite performing how it needs to. Can we do something now? Is the challenge on this particular asset the same as different parts of the estate? Is something coming up here? And I know Paul will touch on this a little bit later. almost like a Monday morning checklist. Say, well, if I actually decrease the temperature by 1 degree, these are the outcomes, or this might stop the room being too cold in terms of school estates. I'm going to leave Paul to give his spiel on that one, but it is really interesting. And with that predictive analytics and, you know, maintenance regimes, we can start reducing waste, we can start extending asset life cycles and be efficient, not just in terms of money, but time, people, resource, travel. It all starts coming together in terms of, you know, our sustainable transformation. Renewable integrations, so we've all heard of solar power, wind, battery storage, EV chargers being more accessible, integrating it truly into society and how we live. Low carbon materials and circular economies, so recycling modular and carbon negative materials. We're working with a partner at the moment that can take all the light fittings out that are broken and rejuvenate them just by adding something in to make them, again, double their lifespan. IMI, so IMI stands for Information Management Initiative. So that's something that we're working with the BSI, so British Standards Institute, around moving that forward. It's all around data and like the new iteration of BIM. So we're starting to leverage structured data to track carbon performance across assets, enabling digital twins. So I know we all speak about digital twins and it still sometimes seems a bit sci-fi, but it takes the risk away from having to directly enter a building, for example. So if there's a nuclear plant that we need to just check where something is, or check the best route in, or utilize the IoT sensors to check on an asset and, you know, locate it, we can do that safely and efficiently. And it helps us support evidence-based decision making for investment. So really using data for what it's there for. It's not just sat in a spreadsheet, you know, saved in a file or a SharePoint somewhere. We're utilising it to make decisions for capital investment strategies, you know, moving things from CapEx into OpEx based on an as a service model. There's so many different ways we can use data that I think we're kind of missing a trick. And then the strategic impact of it. So enhancing our ESG reporting and compliance. So we've all got ESG teams. We all have many, many targets. We also have to meet certain standards. So, you know, really moving into that climate technology piece helps us meet those standards. I mentioned, you know, reduction in efficiencies and reductions in operational costs and our environmental footprint. So if we haven't got 150 engineers in a van on the road, spending a lot of time stuck in traffic, you know, it does help that environmental footprint, even if it's a few hours reduced every week. And it also positions our organisations as leaders in the sustainable world, looking at innovations and how we can work collaboratively with partners. So, you know, I've invited Paul here today and we're co-hosting this webinar as partners and innovators together, along with our clients. Just a quick piece on the Information Management Initiative. So it's a framework for structured, reliable data, supports decision making across all sorts. It doesn't have to just be asset life cycles. It can be buildings, maintenance regimes, everything you can imagine. It also helps enable interoperability and collaboration. So having that common data environment with peers and sharing best practice, and it drives our compliance forward within the ISOs and BIM standards. So specifically 19650. And there's a lot of information now. It's been launched, so if you do Google it, it'll come up, and there's a great contact which I'm happy to put people in touch with to understand a little bit more who works with BSI. So enabling transformation through technology. I know I've really harped on about common data environments, but we need to have consistency across our businesses and across, you know, with our partners. So let's use a CAFM as an example. If we have different CAFMs, then we have to work through specific APIs and make sure it all links up and all the data moves straight across. And that's all well and good. And I think, you know, as long as we've got data, we're one step in the right direction. But having common data environments across our projects and operations and what we're really trying to do is quite key to enable our transformation. Digital twins and predictive analysis. So I've mentioned this already, but FM is fantastic. You know, we all work really hard in facilities management, but if we can start doing things slightly different and still be compliant, that enables our businesses to transform and become more efficient and pass on those benefits to our clients. Enabling, you know, transformation is a culture change. We can't just sit in offices or at home in a rainy town and expect it to work, we need to engage our mobile workforce, the people out on the ground doing the work. We've been lucky at Amey that our mobile workforce are on board with everything we're trying to do in terms of climate technology and sustainability, but it is a culture change. Some of our, operatives have been doing this job for 20, 25 years, and they do something that they know works. So bringing them into a new way of working can take time, but as long as we're all in it together and speaking the same language with the same goals, it does work. And then IoT and smart asset monitoring. So let's make life easier for us all. If we can log into an app and see how our assets are doing rather than going to walk around a 50,000 square foot building to do the same thing, we should really start utilising that. And with how technology's come along in the last few years, IoT sensors have gone from being actually quite expensive to pennies to a pound, depending what they are. So there are definitely ways that we can start utilising more of this technology. So a little bit of the difference innovation can create and when it's done properly. These are busy slides, so please forgive me. This is my fault, I take full responsibility. But innovating into the future, so we've spoken around operational efficiency, but smart technology streamlining our operations and how we do things, reducing downtime and optimising our resource. So linking back to the mobile workforce, if we've got mobile units, we can start really planning where they need to be and for how long and to do what based on the smart technologies which are informing our decisions through data. Artificially intelligent driven data analytics forecasting, so finding out what the maintenance needs truly are, linking into energy consumption. Do we have assets that are performing really badly, and would it benefit us to start changing them out before they break, but you'd have more of a saving through your energy and the requirements needed to maintain them for having that upfront cost. Sustainability and net zero goals, so energy efficient systems, renewable energy integration. So is that getting some flexible solar PVs, which we've now highlighted can be used on flat roofs? We're working with climate tech startup companies through partnerships where we can get access to these new innovations, these new materials, and solar PV panels being the perfect one. They're usually too heavy. They can't be put on a flat roof, but now we found a solution that can. So some of the old CLASP scores, for example, with flat roofs, we can start improving them, and you've got a flexible solar PV that can be moved to a different building, or we can work that out together. And circular economy practices embedded into FM operations really, and facilities across the board. Customer and stakeholder experience, so digital platforms. There's no reason why the client can't log into the platform too and see what's happening. It, builds trust, transparency, communication. Everybody's responsive and has a shared interest in that same built environment piece. And innovation in service delivery. If we do something better, clients are going to be happier, end users are going to be happier. The people in the wings on the hospital are going to be much happier because they're in an environment that works for them. The children in the schools, they're not cold, they're not too hot. The windows aren't, glaring bright in their eyes, and it just really improves everything altogether. Workforce empowerment. So, we can use AR, so augmented reality training. Mobile work management, collaborative platforms. We need to upskill our staff and improve our productivity. So again, bringing everyone on that journey together, empowering them to make decisions and how to use these innovations. They're not scary anymore. They're just part of life. We want to foster that culture of opportunity. So that's a huge thing in Amey at the moment, the culture of opportunity. So how do we improve our own staff, our own teams, our own peers, work in life, as well as those that we work with in our clients, the road users, the pupils. It's wider than just us. And then data-driven decision making again. So integrated data platforms, we can strategically plan a lot better. We can monitor our performance. We've got real-time dashboards. Our clients and ourselves can see where we are against KPIs, make agile decisions around that. Work together, things might need to change. We can start helping with the capital investment strategies based on, again, the sensors and the smart ways of working. So there's so many different ways that we can benefit through innovation and put us in a better place for the future. If we're looking specifically at operations, so I'm not sure, where everyone sits in their business, but we most likely all have ops teams. innovation through accelerated deployment, we can trial and scale technologies really quickly by bringing our operational teams on board, working with clients in partnership rather than telling them what they need to do. We pilot to roll out pathways. So we've got a map across, right? This is something we think is interesting. Let's try it and fail fast. So we don't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of money thinking about doing something, whereas in partnership, working collaboratively within the industry, so with other contractors, with clients, with partners, SMEs, we can roll it out, we can fail fast. If it doesn't work, then we move on to something else. Faster decarbonisation across existing estates and infrastructure by accelerating that deployment and finding things that work. And we have real-time performance data from that. Sustainable engineering, so we can start looking at additive manufacturing for bespoke components rather than throwing something away completely and, redeveloping the wheel almost. Using recycled materials or bio-based or trialing things out. We work a lot with the Manufacturing Technology College in Coventry. Huge warehouse, huge lab. We can try things. And again, I'll keep harping on about that partnership piece where let's work together and do this as an industry rather than individually. Carbon and cost reduction. So whole life carbon, cost optimization through innovation, reducing waste, emissions, energy efficiency, improving through the use of, smart energy systems, which Paul will discuss in a moment, or extending our assets life through smarter design and actually maintaining it properly, not too much, not too little, but how it needs. Client reporting, spoke around ESG already in terms of, real-time data, deploying technologies, moving towards a common goal. We can demonstrate real progress against net zero and social value KPIs to government, to whoever it may be. That can be demonstrated through smart innovations. And, we can use case studies. We can start putting things out into the public, whether that is our client putting things out and saying, we've done this for you, or Amy or whoever else putting things out and really helping our clients make the right decision by seeing that it works. Upskilling workforce engagement. Our operatives can see on the job exposure. They have got cutting edge technologies in their hands, in their pockets, on their sites. Collaboration with the MTC, who I've already just discussed, around upskilling teams in sustainable engineering. Employee engagement through innovation challenges, co-creations with startups. There's a lot that we can do operationally to truly make a difference. And ultimately, if we can de-risk delivery, everybody's happy. So we can identify performance issues early, or anything that's slightly dangerous, or an asset that might not be safe to continue running. We're ensuring our compliance with all the standards. We're working up front with the British Standards Institute to start writing standards around innovation. We're customising solutions for clients, so it's not one size fits all. We can change things. We can be very agile on our feet with innovation and climate technology to make subtle changes to make sure it fits the client and what they need. Fewer delays and overruns due to unproven tech, because we've accelerated the deployment, we've piloted it, we understand it. And then we've got improved stakeholder confidence through evidence-based innovation. So it's not we're sticking a finger in the air and making guesses. I'm going to keep harping on about partnership and collaboration, because that is exceptionally key for what we need to do. But having that stakeholder engagement will support your operatives when they're on the ground doing what they need to do. I think, Paul, I pass over to you now.
Thanks, Danielle.
No problem.
If it's okay, I'm going to have to ask you to move the slides on.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, really good to hear from Danielle of the challenges in this space, and I get really passionate about coming into this space in the industry, as I said, roughly about 10 years ago, because it's not easy. I'm sure you guys know that way better than I do. And the problem is that it's getting even more challenging. So we think we've solved it, and then the next thing gets flung at us, and we have another thing to do on top of the previous things. And one of the challenges is that you end up with all these bespoke solutions and different bits and things to try and do that, and it makes it really, really difficult. So I'm going to rattle through these slides, and we'll cover off the headlines, but if there's further information you want, please don't hesitate, reach out, and we'll cover it off in more detail if you wish to. But I'm going to cover quickly a bit of the energy market just to bring us all onto the same page. So Daniel, if you just jump on to the next slide. First thing is, we are probably all aware but hearing, is that the chart along the bottom basically shows 4 different scenarios, and this has been run by the advisors to the government, UK government, and to the networks. the basic reality is that the UK electricity network has to basically triple in size, to cope with what we know today is going to be the energy demand, i.e. the electricity demand. And that's through lots of different things, but mainly through lots of electrification, so moving away from gas and other assets into more electrified. You've got rollout of EVs, you've got rollout of heat pumps and things that are basically adding more and more demand onto the grid. And as we've seen, it doesn't happen always by plan, and that makes it really, really difficult. One of the big challenges is that even the scenarios you see on the bottom here, where every one of those clockwork, patchwork, homework, dreamwork goes up at an exponential rate, just in slightly different profiles, the challenge is that's all based on consumption being balanced throughout the day. So what's even more difficult is if that consumption shifts or that consumption all happens at, I don't know, midday, that is a very different demand than what the demand is that's forecast. So there's lots of opportunities for people to excel in this, because this challenge is going to make it more and more difficult. So everybody that's on this call probably has a part to play in how do we manage these buildings well? How do we improve the way they're running? How do we make them better for the people that use them? And how do we balance that against the challenges that's coming in the energy sector? The other part that everybody probably isn't aware of is that the expectation is that the increase in costs is by roughly about 20%, purely just on the world we have today. If you fast forward back to 2030, 2040, the costs are going to continue to increase. They're not going to go down. There's all this discussion in the news about at which point it's going to get cheaper. Pretty much all I'd say is if it does get cheaper, you've got to win, but plan that it isn't going to get cheaper. So how do you manage it even better? Because that is the forecast from the industry. You jump on the next slide, Danielle. So a little bit on here was what the characteristics of what we're trying to do in energy demand to supply to it is, where can we get that energy from and how do we get it to the end users? And when you look at where all the the energy is going to be generated from, there's got a long list. So this is a very short summary. There's a list that's, you know, sort of 50, 60 lines long, which is covering everything from hydrogen to, you've heard in the news this week about the small reactors that are getting put into place. So there's a nuclear element to it. There's wind, there's solar, there's places for where we could store and decentralize the energy, but it's like a very complex scenario. And all of those scenarios you just seen are assuming those things are going to come into force. So as we've seen, I mean, the big nuclear reactor definitely isn't on plan, and there's still more work to get there. And that isn't necessarily for one simple reason. It's just these things aren't simple. They're very, very complex to put in place. Next slide. So ultimately, there's two bits to this. Is really, when where we're heading around fossil fuels is how do we find to a place where we can supply demand. So there's a piece of how do you get enough energy being generated to supply that. But what the industry is also realizing, and it's coming to a lot of the mandates now is coming through, is that flexibility is going to be essential. We cannot get there quick enough. And what they mean by flexibility is basically to be able to shift left and right your energy use in time, as well as squeezing it up and down. Now you can see the quote there from Julian, who's also got obviously a big responsibility to find a way to make this work, but basically sees that what they're referred to as demand side response or dispatching demand to meet the generation is literally going to become critical to avoid big challenges in the network, which might result in blackouts and things like that as we try and scale. So this is not an easy task, and it puts another challenge on top of all the things that we've all probably already aware of. We got to the next slide. Regulation is coming. It's starting to come into force now. So a couple of ones that, if you're not aware of, worth being aware of. Basically, half-hourly settlement, which is basically settling the bills based on half-hourly data from the meters, initially electricity and then flowing through into gas. That's starting to get rolled out, and we'll start to roll out in H1 this coming year. Time of day tariffs. So that's basically what you pay for your energy in the commercial space is going to change at the different points in day. What's more than likely going to happen is coming to the end of 2026, we'll see the first ones of those appear. There is some small variants of them, but not massive in the industry yet of those appearing. More than likely going to be day ahead, basically. So a different price for tomorrow that was today. that will eventually start to come down, eventually get into hourly and potentially even to half hourly different slots of how much it will cost you. And it could be as big as a 30% increase in that cost if you cannot avoid those spikes throughout your day, especially in cities where the congestion and the constraints on the grid are even more. Then you've got the carbon mandate, which is out for consultation at the moment. So the carbon mandate basically moves your carbon reporting from being that flat line calculation to reporting it on when you use your energy. So no matter what you've got as your supply, you're going to be asked to justify and prove that the carbon the energy you're using's carbon footprint is when you use it, not just what you've procured. And then obviously we've got the whole rented buildings compliance and EPCs, which is effectively you cannot rent out these buildings unless you meet these criterias. And there is some exceptions, but they're going to get tighter and tighter on the exceptions. That cost to the UK is for increasing the capacity of the grid, not even sorting the flexibility, is about 50 billion a year, which when we hear some of the numbers of the challenge we've got, if we just puts that into context. So jump on, Danielle. We'll have a little look at, well, what is it we are doing and what we're doing in conjunction with Amy. We have a solution which is called E60 Plus, and I'm going to cover this to share the capabilities that's out there. So we're doing this, we're working with lots of different people, and it's key that collaboration is at the center of all of this. This is not straightforward. This is not that you put a piece of equipment in, it just magically works. This is about a change and an evolution in the way we run buildings and how we work together to make this all possible. So what we're actually doing is creating a world of what we refer to as grid interactive buildings that automatically adjust when, what, and how much energy you use, crucially without impacting comfort, which in many other people's terms will be contractual compliance. So making sure the buildings do what they need to do, making sure that the complaints are managed well, making sure the equipment is managed, but also managing the energy, whether that's shifting left and right and up and down. Go on to the next slide, we'll share a little bit about what the journey is. We created this journey. The GridEdge platform that the underlying technology is on was based on a technology set that was designed for the future, which was if you had solar on the roof, heat pumps, heat networks, EV chargers, vehicle to grid units, building management systems, batteries, and whatever else you might have in there, how do we squeeze it tight and then shift it left and right? And ideally automatically, because you need to respond really quickly. Obviously, the world isn't really ready for that. There's some people got some of those, not all of them. Nobody's really got to the point of how all this works. So the journey that we've created takes everybody in the journey, no matter where you are in that journey. So the first thing is inform. Get you your energy data from any commercial building in the UK within minutes. 14 months worth of electricity data will be pulled into the system, whether you give 1 meter or 500 meters. And by the way, if you want to try that out, give Danielle a shout and we'll put it in and we'll show you it. This stuff is about getting you on that first step and giving you easy ways to get data, and then use that to assess where your buildings are most inefficient. So the information also gathers EPC information, floor areas, and other information to look at apples for apples as best you can, and then help identify, let's say you have 100 buildings, which of those hundreds do you do first? And it'll allow you to do that. That step is also to keep you right all the way through the journey. So constantly looking, you put solar in, how's it doing? You put something else in, how's it performing? Making sure you're tracking your end-to-end journey and you're getting the outcomes. You click on Danielle. And then you go into, for the buildings that you have really complex, so where you have building management systems that, thousands of assets. We've got some buildings with like 40,000 different pieces of equipment using energy. And what this step does is it drills right down through into these systems, into the sub-metering, into any other data sets that you have. And we don't tell you to put more equipment in, by the way. You might do that afterwards, but you have enough data and you have enough equipment right now to start winning. We build out what we call a 3D representation, not a 3D twin that was mentioned earlier, because they're much more deeper. But the 3D representation will give you the view of your building, your zones, and how it's performing against comfort, cost, and carbon. Those three things is what we talk about all the way through, so everybody can get on the same page, because it's one of the biggest challenges. You've got your engineers talking in consumption, you've got your sustainability talking in carbon, you've got your finance people talking in cost, and really bringing them together in one page to work together on it. The two things we do then is optimize the comfort. So that might be that issues on heating the area or cooling it that can be understood through the system of what that's causing. And guess what? This is not an analytics platform. I don't know how many analytics platforms over the years have been sold, but the problem that happens is you then need somebody to do the analysis. None of us have got any time. What we need to know is what do we need to do? And that's effectively what step 2 does. It drills through all this information, it looks for patterns, looks for trends, and then it tells you a one-liner, change this to that, save X pounds and X carbon. And your impact to comfort is looking likely to be high, medium, or low. So you know the sort of risk level. Do you need to look at it more detail or not? If it's low, you might just go, yeah, get on with it and do it. And then you can track it through, make those changes and track that energy optimization. Click on again. The next step that normally happens is when this was all built before, you could do that control piece automatically. But actually nobody's really ready for it for many reasons, mainly contractual, because there's all lots of issues around how that works. So what you then do is create a bridge to automation where that information can be sent remotely to anybody who has remote access to your estate, and then they can make changes quickly so that you've not got a lag of days and days and days before you get that benefit. All of this is leading you towards the ability to flex and shift your energy left and right. But the steps here are to understand your building so that the system now knows how you want the building to run. And it can then, by knowing that, work out how it can shift energy away. The first step of that, and this is available today, is what we call carbon load shifting. It predicts the carbon spikes of tomorrow, and it tells you how to avoid those. And when we do that, it might be that we shift a different piece of equipment outside of that basically spike. Now, what we're doing is looking to see, can I do something that doesn't have an impact? The really simple example is you might heat a room. You might heat up a room and it holds its temperature for an hour and a half. So actually you could heat it a little bit earlier. You could hold it and you could turn it off for most of that period, bring it back on to make sure the temperature stays there, but you could avoid that peak. So there's lots of things around that of how we do that. But really what we're trying to make sure, the platform was built for the last step, and this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It does take time. I would always say step 1 and 2, build your data, understand your building, get your people working together to make this work. You need to do that before you're anywhere really ready for when these time of day tariffs kick in and you're having to shift energy left and right. The technology is the enabler, and it's an enabler for all of your teams to be successful. It's not about replacing people. It's not about somehow this does something better than everybody else. No, it enables your team to be on top of it, to address these challenges, but also free them up for the things that they're more complicated, that take more time, that they need to spend time on. And that's really, really important. We jump on. That there is what the journey is. So digitization is one part of it, but as hopefully you heard from Danielle and myself, is that's just the toolbox. It's the thing that tells you the answers. It's things that helps you get there. But what we've got to do as an industry is work collectively and work together to solve these problems. And that's where all the people elements come in. And just to say, we don't from our side, and Danielle knows this isn't just about tech platforms. That's the first bit. Our teams will work with everybody to help them from what we've seen and what works, what doesn't work, and help people get there. Because I said at the start, it's not easy and it's getting harder, but together I think we can solve it. And the whole industry's got a big challenge to get through. So let's work together on it.
Absolutely. And I think, well, thank you all for listening to us go through this webinar today. We'd really welcome questions. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen in a moment so we can answer those. I think the key message, isn't it, and I think I can speak for both myself and Paul, is openness and honesty. So let's have a conversation. If there's something that someone doesn't understand, we're all here to help each other. So, pick up the phone, send an email, ask, Construction Excellence for their view on it, or if there's something else, we might want to look at, we can definitely do that. So let's all just keep talking, I think, is the key.
Thanks to Danielle and Paul. Great. I think what we'll do now, I think we're going to be able to get the opening survey to work. So let's get the results of that, and you can feel what the sort of knowledge in the room is. We don't have any questions that I can see as yet. So please, if you want to ask a question, don't be shy. You can put it into Slido. You can type it in. It makes it totally anonymous then, so you don't know who's asking it. Or you can put it into chat, but if you put it into chat, we're likely to get your name. So fire away. So let's have a look at the first response. How familiar are you with the term climate technology in the context of the built environment? Interestingly, under half were only somewhat familiar. So you've got the results there, both of you. Is that how you would have expected it?
I think from my point of view, I'm not surprised. The term is used so loosely, and just people grab on, kind of stick a badge on something and say this is climate technology. So it's never really been clear. So I'm not surprised at that. I don't think it's clear at the moment of how that works and what's really climate technology. So I'm not surprised there, Howard.
Yeah, I'd agree with Paul as well, Howard. To be honest, it's climate tech. Someone could stick that badge on anything really. So it's about understanding the true nature of it.
You used another one of my favourite words, this collaboration you talked about. That's another multiple used word in the lexicon of business and the construction sector. Yeah. Okay, so let's have question 2, please, Abraham. Which area do you think has the greatest potential for climate innovation? People have put down smart energy systems. Is this what you would have expected?
I think I mean, it depends, obviously, the audience. I mean, it really depends where your focus is, because the smart energy systems allows you to solve the problem. What's interesting is the other one that's kind of third on there, the policy and regulation is actually what's driving the change. So the fact that people have to now do things is what's driving it. But I do think, some of these other ones are the practical elements of what are you actually going to do about it? How are you going to get there? The challenge with the smart energy systems is that if it's thought of that the grid side is going to solve it all, it's definitely not. And I've seen firsthand what's going on in that space. They're doing a lot of great work, and there's lots of good stuff coming. They can't do it fast enough. And so if the other side of the fence, the bit on the buildings built environment side, we've got to do our part, because we will have issues. I think the answer is there is going to be issues in the next few years. We'll see, especially in cities, I think, because of the demands.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is the right question for you, but I recently looked at a new house, and it wasn't even completed. But the only thing I noticed, it had an old-fashioned, well, I say old-fashioned, a brand new gas boiler. I asked the question of, should this have a heat pump and that sort of thing, to be told, oh, well, we actually don't think that's the most efficient way of heating your home, which I thought was a pretty poor answer. But I didn't know whether they should be putting that in as part of regulation. So is that an area that, is still open? Builders don't have to put smart systems into houses?
I was just going to say, it's to be honest, as far as I've seen with regulation stuff on that side, it's not black and white. There is incentives to move in that direction. And I think it's what you say is, everybody's under pressure from margins and what they can, and all of that side of things, which makes the decision flow in a certain direction. I think the other thing is partly why it probably isn't into regulation at the moment is we've got that electrification of the grid. We're way behind where we should be. If they start regulating and driving it to happen quicker, that gap is going to increase quickly when they don't have the answers yet. So I think until there's a more confidence on where the grid can get to do it, then you're probably going to get this kind of do it if you would encourage you to do it rather than stipulate you must do it at this point.
I think
that's
sorry,
Paul. On you go, Dan.
I think, on the back of what Paul's just said, Howard, it's not, as he said, black and white in terms of what has to be done, even, new homes. I think there needs to be a lot more clarity around who's responsible for what. So, the end user, let's say you, for example, Howard, you could go in there and there's so many different retrofit options that you could go for. So let me just give a quick example. In terms of energy efficiency, we're partnering with a climate tech startup that has a smart fuse board that takes the voltage down, which can save something like 25 to 30% on energy bills for a standard 4-bed house.
Oh, wow.
And it's maybe instead of it being I don't know, let's call it £800 for one of these smart fuse boards, you put a little bit more investment in as the end user, but you see a lot of benefit from it. So I think the challenge is who's actually responsible for it. Is it the house builder? Is it the person that's going to buy it and live there? Is it a housing association or the local council? Who's the owner of the home? So it's not black and white. It is quite a tricky topic when it comes to something like that.
I'm sure it is. What's your the next one is what's your organisation's current approach to climate tech adoption? Early stage awareness gets just under half. So is this again sort of where you would expect to be?
I think from my perspective and the conversations I've had with clients and peers and other organisations is that early stage awareness, and seeing that the second one down is actively implementing solutions. A quarter of the respondents, that seems where it should be. So we've got that awareness. We're starting to move with the pressure almost to meet these targets that we've been given. So we've got the awareness. We're starting to implement solutions or exploring options. The no current plans one being 13%, that's quite interesting to me.
I was going to say on that, 13% of people have got absolutely no current plans at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I think the other thing, because it's the word tech as well, technology is set in this industry, not just, I suppose, there's many industries actually, but you see it quite a lot where people are unsure of what works and what doesn't work. There's a lot of people sold solutions that never really followed through in their promises and stuff. And I think that shift in that collaborative approach, which says actually there's got to be a win-win. If you're a partner or a supplier, it's about the outcome. It's not about giving somebody another load of tools. And it's one of the things that in my business we try and stay really true to, which is up front we work together to make sure we're picking the right solutions for the right places and making sure that it's got a high chance of success of the ROIs and their success metrics. And my team know that if they come in to me on a monthly basis and tell me we'll be signing a load of customers, but in 6 months they're all not getting the results, well, that's completely wrong. It should be wrong in every industry. But what I would say is tech has got this thing of there is bits of it that just get sold. I call it chocolate teapot tech, but that's what puts people off. They get into the implementation stage because they don't know what works and what doesn't.
I think we have a question. Yeah, sorry.
Howard, I was just going to say that circles back to collaboration. I know you say it's one of those fuzzy words, isn't it? But true collaboration and partnership, I think, is working together to make sure a solution brings about the outcome that was promised up front. So no chocolate pop technology. It's actually real and it works and it's bespoke for the user of the tech.
Well, I think this is a sort of the next question for what's the biggest barrier to adopting climate technology in your experience? Classically, to me, this seems the construction sector, cost. Which comes back to my boiler. The boiler was cheaper than putting the pump in.
Yeah.
So no surprise to you there, probably, in that answer, I would have thought.
No, I was going to say there, the one of the things that's I think challenging on the tech space for this is that a lot of technology is based on licensing type costings, and licensing type costings don't sit naturally with funding frameworks that have been there for many, many years. They're usually aligned along more capitalizable work that you can do. And we see this a lot, but I do think it's changing, and part of the reason it's changing is not positive in a way because the funding has been dropped, so people can't spend, like, I don't know, let's say 5 million, can spend 500,000. And all of a sudden we are being forced to look at other solutions. But actually, often the licensing models of tech solutions doesn't really fit nicely into a lot of these sort of funding models. I'm seeing it changing, but it's very slow at the moment to see that.
I think from my point of view, then sitting in a slightly different seat to Paul, it's finding the way to make that work. So cost and funding is never going to go away. I mentioned in the presentation we're expected to do more with less, right? That's less resource, less money, less budget. The cost and funding piece is, linking into data, and what we do know is helping us plan our capital investment strategies. There are as a service models, so we work closely with them and we consider them as well, is moving from a CapEx model into an OpEx model for our clients. So whether we find someone to put in that capital up front, right, and then the client can pay back from the cost savings. So still in the green, let's say, that there's multiple ways around it. It's just finding the right way that works for clients and everybody involved. So, not everybody can put an as a service option out there, but some of us can. I just think we need to have that discussion, that open communication.
I personally think it's quite interesting. I don't know what your view is. Lack of knowledge and skills, almost 1 in 5, and then resistance to change is 1 in 8. You know, that's quite worrying to me, but again, probably quite typical of the construction sector. Would you agree?
I think the lack of knowledge or skills, I think it comes back to Paul's earlier point, is it not being quite black and white. So when
Right.
you think you're sure of something, it might be something else. So I can see there being a little bit of nervousness around, you know, understanding completely and maybe being a little bit resistant to it. Because if you've looked at the past, let's say 5-10 years in the industry, we've been pushed and pulled in so many different directions. And ultimately, we need to get a job done to scope, on time, in budget. So, you know, being pushed and pulled, if we know something works, we might continue doing that way. But I think it's got to the point now, things have to change. We don't have a choice anymore. We need to start, you know, moving into that modern world, and climate is a huge challenge for us all.
So we need to convert the 1 in 8 there. Okay. Last question, please, Abraham. How confident you are the built environment can meet net zero targets by 2050? Phew. Only 38% are somewhat confident, and 56% are not confident at all. And yet we've got many years to that. What's your view?
I think that's. I think what you're seeing there is the outcome of the. When we go back on the questions, you know, there's a lot of unknowns, and adoption there is a resistance to adoption, and that is, I would always think, you know, most people want to do the right thing, most people want to do the right job, all of that stuff. But there's so many unknowns. When we talked about earlier, what is climate tech, and it's kind of like, well, it could be 5 different things, it could be a bad or whatever. Those unknowns create uncertainty, and you know, we hear it when we go into businesses that often what's happened with technology is it gets brought in and it's used as an exam marker for everybody in their business. So it's near enough used as a test for all the people. And actually, when we go in, we work with every single person that's going to use that technology, because that actually helps them do a job. And if you can't get your people being behind what's happening, you're not going to make change happen. It's got to be together. It's got to be part of it. And you've got to embrace people and explain to them what this does, because the unknown is a scary thing. And that's what causes people to create walls or black barriers or whatever it is. And I think that's why you end up, they're not confident, because unless you can get over those, you're not going to start making things happen. You're not going to get acceleration. You're not going to start solving quickly. But yeah, I'm not surprised it's at that. There is a lot to do. Can we do it? I think we can, but we've got to find ways of accelerating and getting over these hurdles.
Danielle, have you got anything further to add? I think that's a very positive note to sort of conclude on, if I might add.
I'll agree with Paul.
Okay.
He's the expert.
Unfortunately, I seem to have hogged the stage, but we have no other questions. So I think it's probably time to wrap up and look forward to the weekend. So I'm going to thank Danielle and Paul. Is there anything further either of you would like to say?
I think it's whether you're another contractor, a client, anyone. If you have any questions, please, you know, don't worry about reaching out. Paul and I are both available on LinkedIn. Our emails are on the slide deck, which I've sent a copy over to you, Howard, for distribution. Please, you know, reach out.
Fine. Anything else, Paul? Are you happy?
Likewise, we're all in this together at the end of the day. So more than happy to share experiences and things like that.
Oh, we got one question coming.
Oh.
How do we find out more of the details and how it might support our goals? What I would suggest is that anonymous person may contact both of you.
Yes, absolutely. Or, you know, you can, if you're interested, if it's the 60+ piece that Paul presented, then there's information online about it. But I think the best option would be to reach out to Paul or I and have that conversation. More than happy to talk through that.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thanks very much to both of you. And thanks everyone who joined us today. And look out for the next webinar that we'll have in December. May I just say, have a great weekend, and let's hope the weather improves during the day. Great to see you. Many thanks. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.